is a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm just going to kind of share a few things and my thoughts about this space that all of you are connected to and involved in. Itron is a phenomenal company and one that is really transforming the world and what we do. But when I think about something like this and getting to spend some time with all of you, I go all the way back to my childhood. I was a very curious kid, and I was one of those kids that would kind of snoop around and sneak around, and I did find my dad's secret stash of magazines that were hidden way up inside of the attic. That kind of secret stash that nobody's supposed to see, that kids are definitely not allowed to see. Those sexy magazines called Popular Science. Anybody ever do that as kids? Look at kind of what the future was going to be. It was always phenomenal, right? Like the future was going to be this grocery store that would whisk you out with ease and was technologically enabled. It doesn't look so cool. These days, it was going to be robots, like flying robots that were going to replace us as humans so that all manual tasks would be automated and we would just have to live that Socratic life. Now, flying red robots that are designed from science fiction, we decidedly do not see these days, except for if you go to an Amazon fulfillment center, the Roomba has replaced us as humans. Or it was going to be something that is outlandish that you would never actually see. This one's my favorite, from the Toronto Star in 1958. The rocket-propelled, the rocket-assist mailman that was going to leap from house to house, propelled like a grasshopper with technology that the military invented for infantrymen. This was going to be the future. Now, has anybody seen one of these rocket-propelled mailmen? No. Right? Clearly, there are some predictions of the future that are never going to occur, are never going to happen, except for when you look at tests with unmanned vehicles, drones, that are literally leaping from house to house, delivering packages, or what we just did 2 weeks ago in San Diego with Uber Eats, delivering your next meal. Science fiction has become science fact, even though it may not look exactly like we thought that it would. But whoever thought about and predicted a streetlight that could see and smell and hear? Isaac Asimov didn't. George Lucas didn't come up with an idea of a water meter that could talk. These are the types of technologies that are far more transformative than anything that I showed a few minutes ago. Because it's creating these connections, right? These connecting things that were traditionally disconnected, unconnected, didn't need to be connected, that are enabling people to make decisions. I know how much water I'm using, energy, and I can make a decision based upon that, that allow for really creating that control room, the Star Trek bridge, if you will, of a city. A lot of people, I think that someone is running the city someplace from something a little bit like this. Or for you purists, I'll go with the original cast, that someplace there is someone running the entire city. When, frankly, my entire smart streetlight network is run by a guy named Duncan and his PC. The connectivity that we're talking about is something that will transform the way that we live, the way that we exist. And I look at this cast, and I think about the fact that yeah, the city may be running it, but you all get your chance to be one of those roles. Maybe, Philip is Sulu. I don't know who you want to be, right? Bob is Uhura. Like, take your pick. I get to be, though, Scotty, because I'm Scots-Irish, and I got that, tough stare. The future and what we expected it was going to be like, right, from fantasy is existing today, and we are all involved in making that happen. I like to think about some of these ideas like this connected community that we're all in. It is amazing, it is incredible, but it's a friggin' headache. 50 billion devices are going to be connected. Like, it once was that you may have your cell phone, but now we're on average of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 devices, right? Everything is connected, and it comes down to the fact that the public, the people that we serve, that connectivity is something that will end up changing the way that we all live. Now, how do we enable this without having a huge backlash from these sorts of connections? I think about things like our Get It Done application in San Diego. We harnessed the amazing power of grumpy people. Like, people complain a lot. We gave them the ability to complain about an out street light, potholes, a raccoon in the sidewalk, like all of those things. 40,000 downloads and users telling us what things we can go and fix. And through the Get It Done application, simply taking a snapshot on your phone, routes to the department, and we go and we fix it. Like, imagine if I had to have roving crews of people to go do that. The awesome power of this technology and connectivity has the ability to save money, to improve services, to frankly change people's lives in the ways we never thought before. This is some great research from a company I remember called Silver Springs. Anybody know that one? Yeah, a few of you. Now obviously Itron. So this is Itron research now. 3/4 of US citizens believe smart city technology will have a positive impact on their lives, with another 2/3 expressing interest in living with smart city technology. So this concept, this idea is really taking hold with people, and it's not just for millennials. Yes, this is a millennial nativity scene. Take a quick look. Your hipsters are on Segways with ironic mustaches and hats. Mary is doing a selfie with her Starbucks. Baby Jesus is there in the solar-enabled house. And I still don't understand why the sweatered sheep is in there, but somebody told me the other day, it's a sustainable loop. So that's all that I care about. Okay, so we talk about like the changing future and youth, et cetera, and how that is transforming things, but it's not just for that. We're seeing more and more of the technology enablement changing the way that people think in all spectrums of our lives. People are ultimately what powers the next revolution of smart cities. I talk about technology, I talk about Itron and what you guys are doing, but ultimately it's all of you here in this room that are going to power what is next, that are going to power the future. It's people like my buddy Bob Brazillo. Anybody know him? Yeah, Bob's getting cheers. If not for him, I wouldn't be here, and thank you so much for the invitation. If not for people like all of you, we wouldn't be transforming the world. If not for the technologies and the connections and the ideas and ingenuity, we would not be able to power the future. And why do we do this? Technology is amazing, cool, whiz-bangs and gadgets are fun. But if we forget about people, then we've already forgotten what it is to be and become a smart city. And I like to think of this, and this is going to be my awe slide, and I shouldn't have done it, but I did. Why do we do what we do? It's about the future. Aww. Those are Bob's grandkids. You're creating a future for them. You're creating the future for all of us. People are what is powering the smart community, powering the smart city. And so I ask that all of you take that in mind and really kind of commit to the fact that regardless of where you fit in the spectrum, business, academia, government, any of those things, that you have the ability and are involved in transforming the future for Bob's grandkids. Jane Jacobs, a fantastic urban planner, had this quote, and I'll close with this. Cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they're created by everybody. You all are a part of that creation, and we are co-creating the future together. And one of the people that I'd like to introduce and bring up now, who has been really a visionary in this space and thinks about people first, not technology, how we can transform the future, not just exist, and how we're creating the connected future that we will all live in, is my friend Philip Musi, the president and CEO of Itron. Please welcome him, and let's have a chat.
David, thank you for being here. What I just think, such an awesome introduction. Where do we start there? So one of the most powerful things that I've experienced participating in smart city events is the convening power that you have to bring together a bunch of different voices in a way that we haven't seen before. So maybe if you could just talk for a minute about kind of the experience of new voices and whether or not you're able to really drive some alignment around this vision and kind of how that feels.
Well, just the fact that I'm here, and thank you for the invite, is kind of very different than what a lot of people think, right? Cities have generally been set up to be distrustful of business and industry. And yet now, the only way that we can change the world and change the future is through this sort of co-creation, right? And so that convening power of things like some of the nonprofits that are doing this work, things like companies like yours, I think we're all realizing that we're in this together, right? If we don't hang together, we'll hang separately. That sort of quote. And I think that's the incredible state that we're in now that is going to power the next.
And you know, I saw that piece of research, and I think I feel this in my gut too, and I think people generally have the sense that cities can be more efficient, and that there is tremendous promise of using technology. How do you think about how you prioritize that, though, or where you look for either the highest impact or the best business case to translate that general sense that things can be better to some kind of an actionable set of priorities?
So as much as I like to talk about like the future and what it's going to look like, you have to be really, really practical, right? And I think that when people think about their smart city projects, they want something futuristic and bold and cutting edge. I just say, what do people really care about? And how can you fix that using data and technology?
And so you gave an example of the grumpy people. And we mentioned lighting, which has been a big project for you in San Diego. Any others that kind of come to mind that not necessarily only in San Diego, but you think have had a particularly high impact?
Yeah. So in Louisville, they have a lot of abandoned buildings. They decided to do a connected up wireless network for smoke detectors in those buildings, and that's drastically reducing the number of structure fires and issues because they can get to them quicker. For us, a really ambitious project is our Pure Water project, where we have a number of issues about our treated water system. And obviously, we're in a desert like here, although water doesn't appear to be a problem today. But in San Diego, we're taking the wastewater that was going into the ocean and creating a brand new water source. So literally, wastewater to water. Now, how do you get people to want to drink treated wastewater? Kind of gross, right? We partnered up with Stone Brewing, and we're taking wastewater, turning it into drinking water, and turning it into beer. It's called Full Circle Pale Ale. And it's delicious. As much as we talked about what projects and those big things, it's also about this kind of co-convening and creation with the community, right? Where you get people on board by finding ways that get them interested and new and different ways of engagement, like Full Circle Pale Ale.
Yeah, great. So you mentioned water there, and of course we've got a number of water utilities here. What's the relationship? How does water factor into a discussion about smart cities and work with water utilities, both potable and wastewater, the example that you mentioned?
And we run our water utility for San Diego, and Itron, thank you very much, is doing the AMI, the Advanced Meter Infrastructure. I think two things, really. One is, how do we be outward facing to the consumer? So how do we use that data to drive consumption behaviors, right? Very big, both energy and water, a space that's really important, that we can change things just by telling people what they're doing and what they're using. I mean, that's something we haven't had before, and it seems very pragmatic and simple. Telling people what they use, I call it keeping down with the Joneses instead of keeping up. When people know what their neighbors are doing, there's that kind of shame behavior, and it can actually drive things that does not require a lot of significant investment. The other piece, though, I think that is really fascinating is we have these communications networks, right? So We have a network for our energy, a network for our water, a network for our wireless, a network for our city, right? All layered on top of each other. And I think the next big frontier is how do we figure out how to not just use data amongst and with each other, but how do we actually connect those up and drive down our network infrastructure costs to deliver better services for people.
Great. Well, so with that, I mean, what do you see the relationship between the city and the local utility, and how has that collaboration been historically, and how do you kind of see that developing?
So I co-chair Electric Utilities Advancing Cities, which is an initiative of the Smart Cities Council. And the entire initiative was conceived because of that exact question. Here you have cities which run all this infrastructure, and then utilities on top of that that are connected to every single home. They're like the nervous system. And yet, I sit over here as the city, and the utility sits over here, whether water or energy, and we don't talk about how we're all serving the same people. Their customer is my resident. And so the alignment of utilities and cities to push forward that smarter community, to drive the behaviors that we care about, to really connect and transform the existence, the way people live, is the next big opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's so great. The work we've done with utilities, their interest in having economically vital cities to sustain their business as well, it seems the alignment of interest is very strong. Tell me what you've seen in terms of public-private partnerships and kind of the kinds of structures that people are looking at to try to accelerate a technology adoption, project adoption.
Yeah, so this gets back to my pragmatism. Find a business case and there will be money to follow, right? And so when we did our streetlight system, there was a clear business case around energy efficiency and things like parking. I think you're right on point to say that this sort of alignment of finding that pragmatic solution will always have capital that will follow it. But what we haven't done a good job of is developing that business case. And that's where the co-creation between industry and cities needs to happen. Capital will always follow that.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges there too, and we were talking just before this event about cybersecurity and privacy, that the issue of the city's municipal data or citizen data and customer data getting, commingled. And in your introduction, there was the credit for creating a business data model that could be used in order to improve things. What's your experience been with the responsible use of data and citizen response, and sort of kind of thinking about their concerns and how those can be addressed?
So, I have a network of 4,200 smart streetlights with cameras, microphones. Should freak people out, but it doesn't need to. And I think about this one question. How many people here have a rewards card to some store, right? CVS, grocery store, something like that. You realize that what you have handed over just to save 50 cents or a buck is far more invasive data than my streetlights would ever do, right? Where you are, what you spent, the types of things that you spent. Like, we've busted already our privacy issues, right? We've already disclosed and put this out. And I'm not even talking about Facebook and Twitter and all those things. I'm just talking about things you've never thought about that you've already given away the farm. So I think that actually both industry and cities together have more of an incentive and are more focused on protecting that for our customers and for our residents than we've ever seen before. And if we get that right, we will create that more convenient city, which is my high goal, more convenient place to live, and protect people's privacy in ways that they currently don't even have.
Yeah. I think that's realistic. I think people are still going to continue to be highly concerned, and we're going to have to work hard to show them what we're doing in order to protect that data.
And we have to do it together, right?
Sure.
And that's kind of the point. Everybody talks about monetizing data, but I think that some of the people that are most concerned about protecting that are my industry partners.
Yeah. It's certainly, yes, our reputation and ability to do business really hinges upon our ability to keep information private and secure.
Well, and that has to happen because think about how, ballyhooed what Facebook was, and everybody loved it. It was amazing. They're being drug up for congressional hearings, right? So if we don't get it right, the awesome power of government is really terrible. The overregulation that can occur if people don't feel safe. And so we have a mandate, and I appreciate how focused you are on this and this company. The mandate is for us to get it right the first time, or else I think draconian things will send us back to the Stone Ages.
Yeah. Well, talking about that, I mean, there's a lot of talk about concern about cyber attack and sort of preparedness. How do you think about hardening the system or preparation?
And this is for utilities, for cities, for all of us, right? I mean, the Atlanta example, they were shut down for weeks and they still haven't recovered. What was supposed to be $2.7 million is probably closer to $17 million in recovery. The Port of San Diego just got attacked. They're going to have to re-image every single computer that they have. So it's not a question of whether you'll get attacked or whether you can prevent them. It's about the recovery and how quickly you can recover. Atlanta, $51,000 was the ransom, the Bitcoin ransom. $17 million was the impact. Just insane. So together as industry and as cities, I think we need to change the public perception of being able to protect ourselves entirely, prophylactically never having anything happen, and instead shift to when there's a Hurricane Florence. I was just with the CIO of Raleigh. Everybody knew there was going to be impacts. Everybody knew there was going to be money. Everybody knew it was going to be fairly disastrous. It was how prepared are we and how do we recover? That needs to be the same approach with cybersecurity. And frankly, those of you in industry are far more prepared and equipped to help us solve those problems. That is the next big frontier that we need to co-create together.
Although, on the flip side of that, and I'm so sorry I don't remember the gentleman's name, last night I heard a story about one of the Caribbean islands in which our system's being used in order to restore water more quickly after a hurricane hit the island. And he said after 3 days, civil society starts breaking down when water's not available. Right. And so the ability to recover essential city services more quickly is actually tremendously important in really maintaining order.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think people really understand the conception that communications is now fundamental to life, right? Water, food, those things have always been essential in that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but actually communications and connectivity is just as important these days. And you guys are a part of that.
Yeah, fantastic. So just in starting to close, what's your report card? What are the goals that you have established, and how do you measure progress of not only the smart cities projects that you've done, but how do you kind of think about that success, those key performance indicators?
Yeah, I mean, that's really tough because a lot of it is, kind of inventiveness and co-creation. But I come down to what fundamentally do people care about? And right now, I would say it's pretty simple. Number one, it's about mobility. How do you get around your city? How do you move? And how can we use communications to do that better? I have this thing called Fred, which is a free ride everywhere downtown. It's EVs, kind of like those golf carts, but souped up. Instead of a shuttle, which would have been 4 times the cost, you can just hail it on your app or on the side of the road. Last mile of transit solved, right? It's things like disruptive technology that we've never thought about. We had 30,000 scooters and bikes dropped in my city, right? With dockless bike share and scooter share. How do you deal with that? Now, amazing, because here is this disruptive technology that drops in my city, but also solves a problem without me spending a single dime of taxpayer money. I think when I prioritize, I'm looking for what are the biggest impacts to creating that more convenient and connected city? And 2, how do I just get down to the things that will change the lives of Bob's grandkids, right? Just simple stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. So I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge David Graham, who has been a leader in San Diego, and I think gotten, as you've heard, a tremendous amount accomplished specifically there. but through the generosity of his mayor, has been made available as a convener, as a leader broadly across the smart city space, and I think really infecting a larger community with just a tremendous vision and energy about what it is that we can get done together. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate having you here.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
David.